I've never met an addict who wasn't abused as a child.
Yeah.
Done.
Wow.
How does that impact my life?
Yeah.
How did my childhood trauma impact me as an adult? What did it change? If you're going to be a parent, there are 3 things that a child needs. Love,
Okay.
hugs, kisses, encouragement, exhortment, all that sort of stuff.
Hi there, welcome to the Single Dads Network. This is Single Dads Unpacked, and we are busy actually with season 4, and we are all about building bonds, breaking stereotypes. And this is your host, Sithembiso Phakathi. Welcome once again. And I'd like to introduce my guest today, Martin Pelders. You may have recognized him during the recording at the Empowerment in April, I think April this year. We spoke for about 5-6 minutes, and I was captured by his story around the abuse for men, and would like to delve into that. Martin, please introduce yourself one more time.
Oh, okay. Martin,
Welcome.
Name's Martin. I'm founder of MatrixMen. I'm an author. I'm a life coach, a trauma recovery coach, and that's about it. Yeah,
That's
father,
good,
dad, grandfather, dad.
Thanks, Martin.
Husband.
Yeah, you and I were talking in April this year. As I said earlier, I was really moved by your story around, making it normal for men to talk about abusive behavior. And you shared your personal story. Maybe let's start there. What made you start MatrixMen, and what does MatrixMen do? What is it all about? How does it touch society?
Yeah, so when we started MatrixMen in 2013, 2013, we kind of focused on men that had been sexually abused as children, because that was my past. I was a victim of sexual abuse, and there was no way I could talk about this. It's just so. Because of that, I developed addictions and just crazy behavior. I was an alcoholic, sex addict, porn addict.
Yeah.
I was just a miserable guy. I was depressed all the time, 5 suicide attempts in my life. Woke up every morning going like, I'm still alive. I wish I was dead, And
Wow.
You kind of wake up and you go, life shouldn't be like this, And I try to get help, but everywhere I went, the message was always only girls get abused, not boys, right? And especially boys don't get abused by women.
Okay.
So that was the constant message. When you look at the advertising, when they talk about sexual abuse and rape and all that sort of stuff, it's always a woman.
Always a woman,
right?
yeah.
The pictures are
or a
always
girl,
a woman.
or a girl child.
Or a girl, you know what I mean? And there's
Yeah.
always these vicious images, and then there's sometimes, quite often, there's like this fist, this hairy fist in the foreground of the picture. Meaning, the husband is always the oak that's beating the wife. So anyway, I eventually got married, and for 21 years I was married to this lady who was very abusive.
Wow.
Oh, she was
Emotionally, verbally?
Emotionally, physically sometimes, verbally, constantly. I used to drive home from work thinking, I wonder what I've done wrong today.
Wow.
And it's just like a weird thing. One day I realized, like, just before my divorce, I was like, why am I constantly like, what have I done wrong? I'm out there, I'm working hard, I run the business, I pay the bills, I take care of my family.
But there's always that one thing that you're going to be told.
That's it, It's like, so what did you have for lunch today? And then it's like, man, you bought takeout. How dare you? I'm going like, it's
always a
my
crime
money.
about something.
And it was that constant thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes physical.
Wow.
Yeah, she would slap me, kick me in the nuts, stuff like that. And,
I want us to touch on that because those traumas that live with us, because when you become a dad and you're raising a child or a teenager, and most of the guys that come to our network say that, I've got some baggage and I've got some traumas and I don't know how to deal with them. Maybe let's start there. How could young and old dads today try and offload the traumas coming from abusive behaviors in the past?
The biggest issue with men is, like, we always talk about women, sex, sports, beer, cars.
Yeah.
That's kind of that's our package.
We don't want to talk about this.
We don't like to talk about the tough stuff.
Yeah.
And we need to start developing networks where men can actually feel safe and secure enough to be able to talk about the tough stuff.
To be vulnerable.
You know what I mean? To be vulnerable, to be able to, and feel safe enough to say to your buddies, listen, you know, I mean, I'm having an issue with my wife, dude. You know, I mean, she's like, keeps on breaking me down, accusing me of having affairs, you know, and just get your buddies to kind of support you and back you up and help you out. But we try to avoid that stuff. Like it's going to go away, you know, it's what we're told. We're taught from a very young age, oh, just forget about it. It'll go away. And it doesn't go away. It gets worse and worse and worse.
It gets bigger.
Yeah, it gets bigger. And sadly with men, what it does is it manifests in suppressed anger, which eventually can't stay suppressed all the time. So it erupts, it comes out. And you know, quite often it comes out in violence, and that's what we're seeing in South Africa today. You know, the GBV, it's crazy, you know. But it's not just men that are doing that; it's the women as well.
And to deal with it, I think it starts with speaking, because this idea that men are strong, are tough, and we can bottle it, we can deal with it internally, or to your point, Ella, it's going to disappear eventually. And why do men think that therapy is intrusive? You are weak if you seek therapy. Is this a stigma? Is there a stigma around therapy?
No, man. It's my thing. It's crazy to me because psychotherapy should be a safe space for everybody to go in and just talk about stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
But what are men told? Right? Toxic masculinity, you need to deal with it. Patriarchy is the problem. And the whole, you know, psychology and psychiatry, they've been banging on about this toxic masculinity or masculinity as a construct. You know, I think it was in 2016, I think the Psychiatric Association, the Psychology Association, Association of Psychology America, put out this thing that they said we need to destroy masculinity at all costs. I think like, why? You know, I mean, masculinity is at the very core of every man. That's our identity.
It should be a natural thing. It's an
identity. I mean, we don't go around going like, let's destroy all feminine. Women must not be feminine. You know, why must men not be masculine?
Exactly.
You know, and there's that whole thing about I'm going to go in for therapy and they're going to attack me because I'm a man.
And it's not threatening to be masculine.
It shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be. But what's happening is because they're attacking masculinity at such a rapid rate, men are becoming very defensive.
Okay.
Right. This is my feeling, a personal take, right?
Sure.
So men become defensive about it, and they're starting to go like, hang on, you're attacking my core because I am a masculine man and I identify as a masculine man. And if you look at the good qualities of masculinity, what's wrong with those? You know, we protect, we nurture, we take care of, we educate, we provide for. What's wrong with that?
What's wrong with that? And then it's good to take a position, and it's a natural position. We touched on this last time we spoke, Martin, also around the men as survivors of abuse. Other than therapy, other than talking about it, what other support systems? I mean, a network like this and a network like yours, in terms of accessing information, freeing space to be vulnerable and talking about it. Are there any other support systems we could leverage upon?
There's very little, and what we often end up doing is kind of skirting around the issues. So people end up in like depression groups or anxiety groups or addiction recovery groups. You know, I've never met an addict who wasn't abused as a child.
Yeah.
Done.
Wow.
Seriously.
So there's history. There's always. It traces back to childhood or some childhood trauma.
That's it. But the thing is, we also look at this word trauma and people go like, oh, well, you know, my parents didn't beat me or I wasn't raped as a child, so I'm not traumatized. But you go like, what about the emotional abuse? You know, how many rich kids, so mommy's working, daddy's working, and the kid's at home alone all the time, has to fend for himself, right? And the love he's given is, well, he has money. So that's neglect, right? So he's not getting the emotional input into his life that he needs. So he then turns to drugs and all that sort of stuff. He's got the money. I mean, I can go out and buy myself Coke because daddy gives me $1,000 a week kind of thing.
$1,000 a week, I can do what I like.
Whatever. I mean, I heard a guy has like a budget of like $1,000 a day. He's a kid. I'm like, wow, you know, and you know, these days we're kind of replacing. That's another interesting thing. We'll talk about the artistic in us, right?
Sure.
We're replacing our creativity with money.
With
our
money,
identity, identity as people is changed from being creative, being able to make and all that sort of stuff into, well, my bank balance is so big, I have this status, I wear these clothes, I drive this car. That's not your status. That's not you as a person.
Yeah,
your identity is so much more than that.
It's just an extension of what you have, but it's not who you are.
No.
This thing, Martin, around the relationship between abused fathers or fathers that are survivors of abuse with their children, how can they educate? Because we talk a lot in this network about fatherhood and fathering kids the right way. How can the fathers with this kind of background and trauma educate their kids around the sensitivities around abuse?
Okay, we got to flip that first, right?
Sure, go ahead.
So you can't. Guys often come into my groups and they go like, how long is this going to take?
Okay.
I'm going like, is it like, I don't give you a tablet, right? Yes, it's going to take a while.
Okay.
This is like a 3 to 5 year program.
It's a process.
Yeah, right? It is a process. And if you're selfish enough, and you have to be, and take like a year for yourself.
Sure.
And they go, I can't take a year for my family. I'm going like, but what good are you to them right now?
Right now, because they're toxic.
You're angry, you're drunk all the time, you're this, you're that. So what good are you to your family? You're a negative impact to them rather than a positive one. So if you take a year and focus on you and sort out all the issues that you have in your life, then you will be able to educate. You'll be better for your family.
But you have to heal yourself first.
Step one.
Okay.
The broken can't raise unbroken children. It doesn't work, right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, right? Because especially with men, is what we do is we suppress all of that. So all those emotions and everything that we have, we kind of push down, and we have 5 coping mechanisms for that, right?
Yeah.
And the 6th one, which So the 5 coping mechanisms are addiction, anger, sex, sports, and silence. Right? So now, on its own, one is not an indicator that your husband your brother or your whoever is a victim. But when you put 2 or 3 of them together, then it's pretty much
back to
it's pretty much a definite that they've suffered huge trauma as children. The 6th one, of course, is suicide. So if these 5 don't work, then we resort to the last one, right? And we got 25 plus people killing themselves a day. Wow. Men, hey? Just men in South Africa. 25 plus taking their own lives.
That's crazy, Martin, because you spoke to me last time also about the, other than just the suicide rate for men, but also heart attacks. Because we bottle things out, we suppress them using these mechanisms you've mentioned, and yet our counterparts, females, they cry a lot, they express them, and then obviously they live longer. And so it means it is a serious issue, because if you don't talk about it and don't seek help at the right time, you might resort to a very, very detrimental state. And how do you find, you talked to me last time about the oldish guy that came to you seeking help. He was fairly, fairly old. But
70s, my
but 17, yeah. So how do we encourage using these platforms to encourage men just to make it normalize opening up?
Yeah.
Is it a stage? Is it hard to convince them that you can talk about anything through these platforms, and that's the first step to healing?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the more we as men start telling our stories, right? So like a great friend of mine, Olufile Masanga, is Masanga. He's I keep getting his surname wrong. Sorry, Olufile.
No problem.
He does things like tell your story, and it's vital that we as men start telling our stories, that we're not embarrassed about the things that happened to us.
Not shy about it.
Let's put it this way. The only reason that I started my healing journey from all the stuff that I'd been through as a child is because I heard Tyler Perry talking about what he went through.
Oh, yeah, you told me that, yes.
Then later it was Sugar Ray Leonard and Mike Tyson, and more people came out and started talking about what had happened to them. And not like, we always have this concept that if you were raped as a little boy, that you're going to grow up and you're going to be effeminate.
Be feminine.
Yeah, you're going to be effeminate or gay or whatever,
Yeah.
And that's not true. I mean, if you look at guys like, Tyson, Sugar Ray Leonard, some of the best boxers in the world.
Absolutely.
And these guys had suffered sexual abuse as children. So it was because of them telling their stories that it kind of gave me permission to start talking about what happened to me.
Absolutely, yeah.
And when I started talking about what happened to me, that's when the healing started, right? So we need to use these platforms to tell our stories.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
To tell our stories of heartbreak when you get divorced and you kept away from your children in parental alienation, and you tell people about how it feels for a father to be kept away from their children, then other men can start talking about it too. And then we can start a movement. We're going like, well, we need law change. We need to start educating magistrates.
We normalize it.
Yeah, we normalize it, and we start educating the magistrates and all those people and saying, listen, by default, custody should be 50-50 in South Africa. That's the law, isn't it? But we don't get it. Magistrates are normally, you're the dad, every second week is cool for you.
Yeah.
Off you go. And that kills us.
It creates. We spoke about this, Martin. I was at the SA podcast festival last week, and this young man said, "I'm raising my 3-year daughter by myself. It's taboo even in the family because now I've got full custody. The mother is working somewhere. By the way, she comes in once in a while. They're saying, why don't you take your child to the mom? Can you see that?" The society still believes to properly raise a child, the mom must be there full time.
And the weird thing is that research is telling us that children raised by their single fathers, have better outcomes than children raised by single mothers.
Absolutely.
And the only reason is that fathers are more disciplined.
Disciplined. Right?
Hey, stop that.
Exactly.
Hey, whoop you, dude.
Yeah.
Calm down, So we put in place boundaries where mothers are like, it's okay, darling.
It's okay.
And kids need both.
They need both,
Right?
Yeah.
But this concept, we've just gone through Father's Day where they're going like, wow, to all the single mothers. I'm going like, mothers can never be fathers.
Can never be fathers, yeah.
You sit down when you pee. You don't shave your face every day. You don't have the strength.
Naturally, they've got different strengths.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And emotionally.
I like that because one lady came to my show and said, listen, I don't give an S about the dad. He's on the run. He's useless. I'm playing both roles. And I said,
you're not.
I said, how can you do it proper? How can you do it? How can you be a father to this child? It's not possible.
The
and
thing
she
is,
said, I'm just doing fine. I'm doing fine.
You see, that's what they say. And look, there are amazing mothers and they have to do what they have to do. And we don't take it away from them. But the fact of the matter is that the confidence in children is developed by the father.
Absolutely.
And why? Because he takes the kid, throws him up into the air, and the kid goes, oh, crap, I'm going to die. And then dad grabs him. He's like, catch. Oh, man, okay.
It's trust. The confidence and trust.
Builds, yes. Mummy, seriously.
Yeah.
My kid is 4, right? So my little boy is 4, daughter's 11 months. My grandson is 4, nearly. Granddaughter's 4 months.
Oh, yeah.
And when the boys go down the slide, Mummy's like, fall off. And the dad's like, go, dude.
It's okay.
So you're going to fall off, you're going to bang your head, you'll survive. It's cool.
You'll
go,
be fine.
So he builds a confidence. But if we mother them all the time and just protect them and we wrap them in bubble wrap
and they'll never try anything.
They're never going to develop that confidence. They're never going to take chances in life. You know what I mean? And that's detrimental.
Yeah.
So as great as your mother was, it's still going to impact your life.
I was even saying last week that if the father is on the run or has passed or he cannot be found or he doesn't come around, find that father figure. There must be someone.
Exactly.
There must be someone in your family, in your circle of friends that you can trust and then say, can you be a father figure to this child? How do you change society to say, don't run after that dad that is absent. Find someone else that can play that role. How do we change society to try that?
You see, we need to start, as men, we need to start standing up, right? Because the feminists ain't going to start talking well about men, right? That's just not going to happen. As far as they're concerned, we're rubbish, we should all die, we're toxic. You know what I mean? So we need to start talking. We need to stand up and lead by example.
Yes.
Right? We need to lead from the front, not from the back anymore. We need to start fighting for our children.
Yeah.
We need to start doing those things. I mean, you've got amazing movements like the Character Company, my friend Yaku. They mentor children, fatherless children. Charlie Peterson runs something like, what's it called? The Fatherhood Foundation. That's Zane Meese, the Fatherhood Foundation. Charlie Peterson runs a thing for young boys. So there's a lot of organizations that are developing out there that actually mentor young boys. And it's proven over and over again that any child that grows up in a negative environment, the biggest factor that changes their lives is one adult that pays attention to them. One positive adult role model, right? Usually a male. Okay, quite often teachers. So you'll see.
That's powerful. That's a very important role.
Very important role.
Yeah.
And boys need strong male role models.
Especially the boy child. So I was talking to another gentleman, Tuto, who's passionate about educating and mentoring boys. And he runs a program where he has got camps for boys. And he was saying when an absent father, with a boy with an absent father grows out totally different because that father role is not present in his life. And he's looking for that identity. And eventually he would look for it elsewhere and he may never find it. And what's the impact on a boy child based on what you've seen where there is no present father?
Well, hugely. I mean, we see the propensity towards incarceration, so going to jail, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I spoke at a prison the other day. I'll tell you about that. So, addiction, teenage pregnancy, so it impacts on girls too. All these things go up, dropping out of school, suicide.
Yeah.
It just goes up because the father's not present, right? And it's proven. The study's been done. It's there, yet we as a society ignore this. We're still trying to push fathers out of children's lives.
As long as we provide, but
it's like send the money and stay away. That's what they want. Yeah. I mean, what was it? Heartlines did a big research project.
We were with them.
Where they came back and they said the biggest reason fathers aren't present in their children's lives is financial. Right? Because baby mama says, if you don't give me money, don't come.
That's it keeps coming back, Martin, because an 18-year-old, when I spoke at Empowerment and you were there, he said, I'm 19 years old. My ex-girlfriend and I are raising a 2-year-old. I missed maintenance once when she blocked me. Yeah. He said, you can't come see your boy. You're not allowed to phone us. Because you're not paying maintenance. Imagine that.
You see, and this is something men need to remember. Now, this is law, guys. I mean, seriously, guys, this is law, genuine.
Okay.
The law is maintenance is one thing and visitation is a totally separate thing.
It's access.
Mummies cannot deny fathers access to their children because they're not paying. They have to take them to court, to the maintenance court and say this guy's not paying, and he is allowed to present his case saying, listen, I haven't had a job for 2 years, right?
Of course.
So how do I?
But they shouldn't deny him access.
But they cannot deny him access, and this is something daddies need to remember. If they are denying access, go to the children's court. Two separate courts.
Yes.
Right. Go to the children's court. They deal with different matters and say, baby mama is not honoring. She's denying me access to my children. Yeah. I want, according to the high court ruling.
Yes.
It's not a low court magistrate's thing. It's a judge.
Yes.
The big dude, he stamps that thing that says you must see your child.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Mommy can't decide. She has no authority to do that.
Both parents have to have equal access to the child, regardless whether they can afford maintenance or not. In fact, remember the story in Pretoria, a lady was sent to jail 12 months.
And the mother.
And by the way, and the mother. Yeah, because they denied. Because the court said you must give reasonable access to the child by the father, and she denied that. So you can't buy. In terms of the Children's Act, actually, you can go to jail up to 12 months if you deny access.
Exactly, and that was a landmark case.
It's a landmark case, and we learned a lot from it. Let's go back to the issue of abuse. How can I actually put down a question here? What role can things like mindfulness, stress management, whether it's yoga, those kinds of things to deal with those. Of course, dealing with past traumas is, you can do professionally, you can do many things. But basic things like mindfulness, things like stress management, can fathers use those kinds of methods to deal with trauma?
Of course.
Yeah.
You know? Like I say, I mean, I push this point, and it's a fact. Men have been given those 5 skills to deal with life, right? Sports, sex, silence, addiction, and anger, right?
Yes.
If those don't work, then we kind of, our toolbox is empty, and we go like, what now? You know? So we need to learn emotional skills. Okay.
And you can learn those skills.
You can. It's like colors, right?
Yeah.
So when you say to men, what colors are there? They go like blue, green, yellow, black, white, you know, those are the basic ones, right?
Yeah.
But when you start going into, go to a decorator's place and learn about color, and you'll see that you actually start expanding your mind, and you start seeing, as you learn about these different, that's teal, oh, that's lime green, oh, there's like all these variations of colors. And then you go like, oh, wow. And as you learn more colors, you start seeing more colors, right? Emotions are exactly the same.
Yeah.
When we talk to men and we say, give me words for emotions, they go, well, there's anger, there's happiness. And the weird thing is that we start with anger. I was like, okay, that's an interesting point, right? So they always go anger, happiness, sadness, I mean, even me, I deal with this all the time. I struggle to go through all the emotions, right?
Yeah.
But the more we learn about and expose ourselves to the different emotions, the more emotions we learn.
The more you can learn.
And the more we start understanding different emotions. And we need to remember that what is an emotion? It's a feeling, right? So what is anger? It's an emotion. It's a feeling.
Yeah.
I feel angry for a reason.
And you're triggered by different things.
What triggered me? That's the first question. Why? I say to guys, find out why. Because the minute you start understanding why something made you angry, you can start managing.
You can start managing.
So we as men need to start getting in touch with our emotions. Now, if you consider that, I would say pretty much 50% of all South African men have suffered a trauma
at some point
as a childhood, right?
In the childhood.
As a child. I mean, look at poverty is a trauma. Growing up without a father is a trauma, right? These are listed as traumas in what we call the adverse childhood experiences, right? Growing up in a house where there's addiction, alcoholism, drug addiction, misuse. Growing up in a house where a parent is depressed. Growing up in a house where parents are abusive. Growing up in a house where children are ignored, not validated. So there's 10 basic factors, right? And when you're exposed to 3 or more of those traumas, then you grow up, and generally you kind of display, especially boys, symptoms of ADHD.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
right?
Yeah,
so when you go around and what does the world do? Drug.
Just
drugs, zombie them out. No.
Just to neutralize them.
Boys need to learn to understand their emotions.
Yeah.
I call it my superpower. Right? ADHD to me is a superpower because I can read people so well. I had to survive as a child. Right? So when my abuser came home, I had to be able to read the body language to figure out what the hell was going on in her head. Right? Before I approached her and said, hi, what happened and how you feeling or whatever. Yes.
Exactly. I want to go back to your own story, Martin, the childhood story. How did you deal with shame and guilt? And you were telling the story so vividly. Oh, did you not?
No, I drank.
You drank. And did it solve a problem?
No, it never solves a problem. That's why I say all addicts that I know have suffered some form of trauma. So what you're doing is you're taking a medication to cope with something that happened to you.
And
you don't know how to deal with it.
Temporary though. It's not like a long-term solution, or is it?
Oh, never. I mean, your outcomes
of addiction. You just suppress it for a little while.
Yeah. I mean, what are your outcomes of addiction?
Yeah.
Death.
Just
you're going to die. You're either going to overdose or you're going to drink yourself and your liver's going to back up and you're going to die. Death. Early
because
death.
Guys still know the sense of guilt. How can I tell my children I was abused sexually as an example? And therefore they just keep on suppressing it through addiction or other things.
Yeah.
But how did you eventually deal with it?
Well, through seeing the guys talking about it, Tyler Perry on the Oprah Winfrey Show, and listening to other people and learning, and then learning. That's the big thing. So now you know what the problem is, right? Okay, I was a victim of abuse. Done, right? Now what? Next step, learn as much as you can. How does that impact my life?
Yeah.
How did my childhood trauma impact me as an adult? What did it change in me? Why do I behave the way that I do? And once you start understanding that, then you start getting a clearer picture of who you actually are.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, the interesting thing is that a victim of abuse cannot raise children to not be abused. Okay.
Okay.
So, am I making sense here?
Yeah, I'm following.
So usually if I'm teaching parents, right, to protect their children, I say the first indicator that your children are going to be sexually abused is because you were.
Okay.
Done. Right? And they go, but like, I'm not going to sexually abuse them. No. What you're doing, your behaviors and the way that you deal with it are actually going to push them away from you. Right? And they're going to go out there and they're going to become vulnerable because you're not giving them one. So what do you need to give your children? There are 3 pillars in a child's life. Okay. Now, this is very, very important, right? Okay. If you're going to be a parent, there are 3 things that a child needs. Love.
Okay.
Hugs, kisses, encouragement, exhortment, all that sort of stuff. Sustenance. Food. Okay. And sustenance, also mental sustenance, right? Education.
Yeah.
Right? Somebody said to me, this is the problem with parents these days is that when they try to teach their kids something, they want to give them like a 40-year history lesson.
Sure.
Don't. Just tell them what they need to know. Done, right? Sustenance, mental, okay? Education, confidence.
Sure.
All that sort of, it comes from love and sustenance, right? And security.
Security, yeah.
Right? So he wants to know that he can come home, that he's got some big daddy or big mom who's going to protect him from the bullies at school. He's going to stand up for him. He's going to believe him, right? He's going to give him a nice place to sleep, a nice warm bed.
Sure.
And he's going to be dry in the rain, right? And those are the 3 pillars of every child's life. Take away one of those, they're going to be vulnerable.
Definite.
Okay? And they're going to try and find that outside of their family. And that's why kids in the Cape are going to gangs. Right? Because that gang is family. Aside the fact that
a sense of belonging.
Yeah. You know, aside the fact that your entry to that gang is a gang rape,
Sure.
whether you're a boy or girl, right? Doesn't matter, but it's family, right? And we stick together, right? Because we're brothers. That's why they call each other brothers, right? So they're looking for that family and they're going to find it somewhere, right? And it's 99% of the time it's not going to be a positive role model or a positive, thing. So those are the 3 ways you can teach.
Talking about the role modeling, we're gonna close very soon, Martin, because I want to talk about forgiveness and I want to talk a little bit about MatrixMen. Talking about the role modeling, I'm thinking, how do fathers of modern age model good behavior and instill that kind of behavior in their kids today? Because we're just talking outside. There's just so much destruction with our kids today, whether it's stuff at school, it's gadgets and television and games. Do fathers have a chance today to really model good behavior and instill that behavior in their kids?
Absolutely. I don't know why we give up. We haven't lost the war against phones. You know what I mean? We haven't.
We have not.
So for me, the most important, I saw this little cartoon strip. It's like this father walking and he's got his hands behind his back and he's kind of leaning forward a bit and he's walking. And then you see this kid behind him. He's also hands behind the back, leaning forward, modeling. So kids don't do what you tell them to do.
They do what they see.
They do what you do. Right? So if you use anger, okay, I'm guilty of that, right?
Sure.
So I'm not going to make out like I'm a saint. I'm not.
Of course.
I've got my issues. I do, and I'm working on them constantly, right? So somebody said to me, when do I finish healing? And I said, when you die.
That's why I know, because it's a long road.
It is. And you got to work on yourself every single day, constantly. You're a work in progress. If you've stopped being a work in progress, then you might as well die.
Then you're irrelevant.
You're not really living, right?
Yeah.
So you need to be the example. Not through your words, through your actions, right? If you're going to be there, your child is going to treat his wife the way you treat his mother, right? So if you're encouraging, supporting, if you're shouting at her all the time, he's going to think that's normal, isn't it?
They're going to think that's how actually parents are supposed to behave.
Exactly. So man up. I know it's like a very quaint phrase that man up and start working on you. Work on your anger issues. Raise your child to be confident, self-assured. You know, at the end of the day, if somebody tries to molest a child, and he comes in, there's a confident child, and he puts his hand on his leg, and he's like, "Hey, little boy," and the kid goes like, "Don't touch me."
Yeah.
He's much safer
That
than
way.
the obedient, wimpy little child who
one.
does exactly what daddy says.
Yeah.
Do what I do, or I'm going to beat you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Those kids are vulnerable.
Yeah.
And because of that. So you need to be the example.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And the only way you can be an example is to better yourself.
Start with you first.
Starts with you.
How does MatrixMen encourage fathers, singly or otherwise, to really allow themselves space for healing using different methods? Do you coach them around those journeys? And do you monitor their behavior change? How does it work? How do I say, I think I'm in a good space now to father my kids properly? You said it's an endless journey.
It is an endless thing, right? But you got to start somewhere,
Okay.
right? The journey of 1,000 miles starts
Sure.
with one step, right? And what I find very interesting is that the guys that put in the work, put in the effort, they don't just change the way they think and feel, right? They actually change the way they look.
Oh, even the way they look.
Yeah. It's a physical change. It's the most amazing thing. And I sit there and I watch the guys. It's like 6-7 months into a year-long program. The guys walk in and you can see it.
Even the way they walk, probably the way they walk.
The way their eyes are, the way their faces, they are brighter, happier, walk upright, just look amazing. And then you look at them and I go like,
it's a healing process.
I see you got it this week. And they go like, freaking hell, I got it. You know, and it's a physical change. And I mean, I've genuinely had guys that have gone from on the verge of divorce, losing their family house, everything like that, to having incredibly happy families, getting promoted at work, you know, businesses taking off, things like it. It's genuine. I'm not making this up. You know what I mean?
Wow.
It is a fact because you are more self-confident. You're no longer embarrassed about what happened to you.
Yeah.
You know, you're not trying to hide your past. You're not living this lie because quite often the guys would start lying to people to make themselves feel better.
To make them feel better.
And that kind of goes around in circles and eventually they're going like, I don't know what lie I told to who. And then they start developing anxiety and panic attacks and you know, all that sort of stuff. So once you get the guys to kind of unpack, go back, make restitution, it was one of the hardest things I did. I had to find every single girl that I dated for the last 55 years, right? 50 years actually, and go and apologize to them. And that wasn't, I didn't have to. I wanted to. And not because it was good for me, because I wanted it to be good for them.
For them as well. Yeah. Because I wanted to talk about the power of forgiveness, not forgiving the people that you have wronged, but also forgiving yourself.
That's it starts. It's got to start
that is powerful because talking and opening up makes you realize that you may have done things to yourself through the childhood phase, and there's power in forgiving yourself and those that wronged you. Yeah. Would you say that's one of the critical steps?
You know what? People get offended when I say, you know, forgive the people that hurt you. And they're like, why aren't they going to get off scot-free? I'm going, it's not about them getting off scot-free, right? It's about you letting yourself go.
It's about you.
Right? So you end up forgiving because when I harbor hatred and resentment in my life, it affects me mentally, physically, and emotionally.
Yeah.
So if I hate Steve because he did something to me, you living your life, you're having a great time. You don't know I hate you, right? You carrying on, you jolling around, life moves on, you're doing your thing. And me, I'm like, I hate it. When I see him, I'm going to run him over. I'm just like, I hate him so much. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that develops stress in my body, and that stress converts into disease.
It's bad energy.
It's a fact.
Yeah.
All right? It is a scientific fact. We know it for sure. It's proven. It develops into things like cancer, ischemic heart disease, diabetes, right? So me holding on to my hatred of you because of some obscure thing that you apparently did to me, right? It impacts me more than it impacts you.
More than it impacts me, yes.
Right? So why not forgive? So eventually I'll turn around and go like, you know what? Just let it go, dude. It's okay. I'm sure he didn't mean it. Whatever. You see, and for me, it was hard, man. It was really hard. I used to fantasize about murdering one of the guys that abused me, right? And I mean, graphic detail, right?
Wow.
And one day I realized something. I thought, you know what? I'm not a murderer. I'm a healer. I don't want to murder people. Like, so he, through what he did to me, is turning me into somebody that I'm really not.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to be a healer. Okay. And that's when I, like, working through that process, eventually I was like, okay, I'll let Gary go. You know what I mean? He's done his thing. He was a sick man. This is the way I kind of processed it in my mind. Somebody must have hurt him as a child. So he then put that onto me. And I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to move on. You know, I'm not going to pass it down generationally. I'm going to let it go. And I did. And I must say, there's like a peace came over me.
It's peaceful.
It is. You know,
you were telling me last time we talked that you yourself came close to taking your own life, not once,
5 times.
Because of the how did you come away from that kind of state?
You know what? Is it like, I can just say, it was like, there is a God. There is a God. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So I think of the 5 times that I can remember actually trying to kill myself. Wow. Right. So once I was on my motorbike and I was like riding towards the pillar of a bridge, and I went to do, and this little voice popped into my head that said, "Oh, you probably stuffed this up too," and that voice has lived with me to this day.
Just repeat. What did the voice say?
You'll probably stuff this up too.
Okay, right? So you must take ownership.
So it was, well, what happened is, like, when I was heading towards this bridge and I was like, okay, now I'm going to just end everything.
This is it.
This voice said, you probably stuffed this up too. And in an instant, I got this picture in my mind of me lying in a hospital bed with all these tubes coming out.
Wow.
I was unable to move or say anything, but these people, there's nurses and doctors and everything, like, abusing me.
Oh, okay.
And there I was powerless, and that was the rest of my life. I couldn't defend myself. I was just going to lie there, and these people were going to do what they wanted to me. And that made me pull out. And another 4 times when I used to get really drunk. You know, of course, I was an alcoholic. So, and I would come to, and I'd actually I had a Walther PPK, and it would be cocked and loaded and the safety off, and I'd actually come to out of like a drunken stupor, and this voice would say, you probably stuffed this up too, right? And
same voice.
Same voice. And then I would have this vision of, like, the bullet going through, but only like half my brain destroyed. And same thing in hospital again with these tubes and things like that. And so that saved me 5 times, you know?
Wow.
And that's ultimately, and I think of all the accidents and, you know, driving drunk and, you know, I mean, wrote off cars and accidents and nearly killed, and I survived all of it. And I was like, there is a God. He has a purpose for my life.
Wow.
You know, that was the
That's
thing.
A beautiful story. I'd like you to talk now, not to me, but to the dads, single dads or otherwise, out there that are scared to open up about their past, because sometimes they feel they are digging stuff that is lying out there. Talk to them about why it's important to recognize that your past is part of you, but you can heal from it, because you don't want to pass that hatred, that hating to your kids. And I'd like you to look in that camera there and talk to those guys and say, having listened to my story, you too can come away from this. Go ahead.
Guys, I'm like, nothing is impossible. The mind is the most amazing tool ever designed. It is like the supercomputer on steroids, and you can change whatever's happened to you. It just takes one brave step. You need to start talking about what happened, and you need to find a safe space to be able to do that. So we offer that at MatrixMen. So we'll have once a month a fireside meeting.
Sure.
You can meet with me online if you're around the country. You can come and meet with me personally. And we will start up meetings again in person, but also online, where men who've been through similar things. And we have meetings in Durban and Cape Town. We have meetings starting up in Kenya, by the way.
Oh, that's good.
We have meetings starting up in Australia as well now.
Awesome.
So we're starting to expand. So find a group, contact me. You can email me. You can WhatsApp me.
We'll provide
me, whatever,
the details.
and we'll give you the details. but find the strength, man, to start. I always say this thing is that if you're a victim of abuse as a child, and whatever that abuse is, don't get into well, I wasn't raped. No. Abuse is abuse. Your worst day is your worst day. My worst day might be worse than yours, but it's your worst day, and mine doesn't compare. I don't have to live your life. You don't have to live mine. So you take your worst day and you start dealing with it and working on it. And it's vital that you start doing that, because that impacts the way that you behave as an adult, and that will cascade down to your children, to your family, and to everybody around you. And it takes courage to stand up and say, okay, let me start dealing with this. But I promise you something, it might be hard for 4 or 5 months, but once you do it,
it's worth it.
It will change your life. Guaranteed.
Thank you so much, Martin. This was powerful, and I'm glad that you managed to come talk to us again. And those of you that are listening and following our channel, be rest assured that Martin is going to come back, because we want to unpack this phenomenon around healing a little bit more. And when we shoot season 5, I'm going to ask him to come back again and spend some time with the Sunday Dads Network. This is your host, Stemezi Parati, on the Sunday Dads Unplugged. See you soon. Thanks, Martin. That was good.
Thanks, brother. It's good.
Thanks
for the invite, man.